Pop star, model, businesswoman, DJ, and sex tape star Paris Hilton is filming a music video. Pop Justice is reporting the song is entitled Good Time. Ms. Hilton tweeted that she is very pleased with the progress with which the video is proceeding. Ms. Hilton signed with rapper Lil Wayne's Young Money label earlier in the year. The star has only released one previous album, entitled Paris, in 2006. Yesterday was supposed to bring with it the release of Mariah Carey's 14th studio album. However, the project has been pushed back, and Ms. Carey continues to promote her single Beautiful with singer Miguel. Several remix packages have already been released onto online music stores earlier this season, but in a curious expansion of the promotional campaign, Ms. Carey has announced her intention to release even more remixes of Beautiful. In an era of remix austerity, so to speak, Mariah Carey is one of the few artists with enough resources to pursue full remix treatment for her singles. Paula Deen has denied that she forced an African-American chef to dress like the American racist advertising caricature Aunt Jemima. Madame Deen is responding to the allegations made by the former employee, who is but a small part in a larger controversy raging about Deen's possible racial animus. The chef in question worked for Deen for 22 years. Courtney Staton, the young woman famous for nothing more than her over-sexualized persona and her marriage to a man in his 50s when she was 16, is releasing a sex tape. The video is part of the Passion and Pleasure series. The tape will be released next week. It has been a busy week for celebrity phenomenon Amanda Bynes. It was first reported that the multi-talented actress and rapper could be held on a psychiatric hold for 2 weeks. This comes after she was found to have trespassed on a stranger's property and started a fire in the city of 1,000 Oaks. Miss Bynes' parents next head to court to attempt to gain legal conservatorship over their daughter. This would give them several advantages, including the ability to make mental health decisions for their daughter in the future. According to Radar Online, the parents are worried she may die if left unsupervised. Bynes' dog may also be at risk. The pet was also present at her trespassing incident and was discovered covered in gasoline. Radar Online reveals more of the story in an article where, quote, Amanda Bynes' hospitalization for a mental health evaluation was the culmination in close to a decade of bizarre behavior, which began with delusions that she was being spied on as a teenager. More recently, the young star has been talking to herself in tongues and hearing voices. It was reported Miss Bynes refused to entertain the audience of her father while in hospital. Headlines from The Word for July 25th, 2013. Coming up after the break, we will have Annika's angle on fried chicken, among other things. Holdings of debt by the American middle class. We'll look at Fox News accusing others in the media of creating racial division. Look at the private mercenary company Blackwater, and the PR complex behind the phenomenon of the royal baby. See you on the other side.
Destiny, oh destiny, you can't get around it, you can't go over, it's bigger than life, don't you see? It's so high, it's past the sky, that is where the real answers lie.
Welcome back to The Word. I must amend the headlines that I said earlier in the day because a few news stories have broken. So before I introduce my panel, I must read to you these. Neuroscientists have released that they are able to create false memories in mice. Sex researcher Virginia Johnson has died. Halliburton pleads guilty to destroying Gulf oil spill evidence. And most importantly to this program, it has been revealed that it is a Chinese firm that is in control of the proposed UK pornography filters. China is obviously a country that is infamous for its censorship, and it will be interesting to see how that plays out.
Oh, come on. They don't ever censor anything. They're the most honest country in the world.
I know whose voice that is. Hey, Annika, how are you?
Good, how are you?
So we're going to start off today with something a little bit different, introducing a new segment called Annika's Angle. And Annika, I understand you have some pretty juicy stories for us today, right?
Well, juicy I don't know about, but ones I find quite interesting.
You're supposed to say these are the juiciest stories of all time, Annika.
Okay, they are the juiciest stories of all time.
So I understand that one involves something about Christmas. Is it Christmas in July?
There is a judge, and sometimes I guess you could call him Ebenezer Scrooge. He's in Ohio. His name is Judge Michael J. Holebrook. He's in Franklin County. And he likes to give what he calls the Holebrook Holidays. So an individual has time to think about their crime. There's a minimum of 3 days in jail, and usually in December around Christmas. What happens is the person who he has convicted, or who is convicted,
Yes.
he sentences them to these holidays. So, for example, instead of doing 15 years time, I'll give you a specific example shortly. This one particular criminal is only doing 15 days of jail, but for the next 5 years, she has to spend 3 days at Christmas in jail. But what she did really bothers me a lot. She pled guilty to 5 counts of tampering with records, immigrants illegally enter into the country. Basically issued illegal driver's licenses for these people, which means they could get all kinds of different benefits, and, you can do a lot with a driver's license.
It's true, you can.
And, that is a very large part in getting all kinds of different status.
And getting citizenship in general,
Exactly. Driver's license is like a proof. It's a form of a serious identification.
Yeah, and for most of us, it's our main or only form of identification.
Yeah, and, she only had 5, felony counts, but there's still 5 counts. So she had a 5-year probationary sentence and a $3,000 fine. Now, if she violates her probation of these Holebrook Holidays, she'll get 15 years in state prison.
Oh, my God.
But right, because it is a serious felony.
Yeah, that is.
Felony. So instead, he's giving her, 5 years of 3-day sentences. He asked what her favorite holiday is, and it's Christmas. So he's making her do it at Christmas. Kind of what he does.
That was his methodology there, to ask what the favorite holiday was?
Well, he asks what holidays are favorite. He doesn't always do Christmas, but usually it ends up being Christmas.
What if somebody said, a day that only falls on a leap year?
In that case, he wouldn't necessarily give him the holiday.
It actually seems like this is a lenient option for her.
Absolutely. And I think, it's that is a time that you spend with your friends and your family. And I could see on those days missing her friends and family like that.
Yeah.
She would, think a little long of, think about what she did. I would think personally that's, if you consider how overcrowded jails are, I like the Holebrook Holiday. But it's Franklin County, Ohio.
Which holiday would you choose?
Passover, personally, because it's a friends and family holiday.
Yeah.
Now, granted, she's going to be on probation for this whole 5-year period. So if she screws up, she instantly goes for those 15 years.
And so your second story that you have, it involves chicken?
Kentucky Fried Chicken is suing a Thai restaurant chain. You're never going to believe this, but they call this restaurant chain Hitler Fried Chicken. Oh, yeah. Hitler is the murderer of World War II. One of history's greatest monsters. What they do is it looks like KFC, and it even has the logo HFC, and very similar. And it's basically Hitler's face. It's the same sepia tone, image.
Do they allow Jews into Hitler Fried Chicken?
I don't know. It's Thailand. I don't know how many Jews there are in Thailand, to be quite honest.
Is there some sort of veneration of Adolf Hitler in Thailand?
Because I could see where people might confuse it, because, again, the logo and all that looks very similar.
Come on.
HFC instead of KFC.
Would you ever confuse those two?
Personally, no, but I consider myself intelligent and informed, and I am incredibly informed as to the Holocaust because I looked at my family in it.
I would think that even Thai people would recognize Adolf Hitler's face. Or maybe that's why. Maybe that's the selling point.
He asked the guy behind the counter why it was called Hitler, and the guy behind the counter shrugged his shoulders and said the owner thought it was a good image. Yep. Yum Foods owns KFC, and they're a very, very large company.
Yeah.
They own Pepsi, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut. Yum Foods is a huge, huge corporate monster.
Yeah, it's one of the Fox 50 stock picks.
I found in one thing a photograph of a woman, standing outside a Ronald McDonald in the seat aisle position, and because apparently cartoon pandas, Teletubby, and Ronald McDonald have all been spotted around Bangkok, and this craze has seen more and more teenagers strutting around in T-shirts with cartoonish images of Hitler.
What?
So, yes, they're saying Nazi chic, which is a new trend.
Nazi chic?
It's one of the pink Teletubby with Hitler's hair and mustache and a swastika on top of its head.
Oh my God.
So, it's in the northern city of Chiang Mai in September of 11, a group of high school students showed up for sport day in homemade Nazi uniforms.
Are you okay?
Complete with toy guns and swastika armbands.
And we have no idea why this culture or the youth of this culture have an obsession with Adolf Hitler?
Apparently, this obsession has been growing since 2007. There were a bunch of students at a Bangkok school that had a Nazi-themed costume parade.
But that gets into the question of, should government interfere in this business? I don't know. But let's move on from Annika's Corner to a very positive story about, back in the United States, our economy. Fox Business is reporting that middle-class families across the country are beginning to pare down their debts. Total household debt fell 1.1% in the first quarter of this year among middle-class families. Loan debt is decreasing, meaning people that have been amassing their money and making bigger down payments. So obviously this is good news. From your perspective, do you see this as the reality on the ground these days? Are less people hurting?
Oh, no, not in the slightest. What it is people aren't getting loans. They're being turned down for loans.
You think so?
There's less debt because people aren't foreclosing on their homes.
So what you're saying is these numbers are almost leading people to make false conclusions about an economic recovery.
People aren't going to college because they can't afford it. So they're trying to get jobs.
Yeah.
That's another huge consideration. A bachelor's degree doesn't get you much further than no degree. So why would you throw yourself into that much debt?
So once again, you're very skeptical with these student loan debt numbers.
Yes. Our economy is in the toilet. We all know that.
Yeah.
People don't want to admit our economy is in the toilet. So what's a good way not to admit it? Say, oh, yay, student loan debts are down. Not to state why they're down, because people aren't going to school because they can't afford to go to school.
Yeah, this Fox Business does not report that.
I think we need to look at the bigger picture rather than just, the fact that debt may be down.
Yes.
We need to look at, why realistically is debt down?
So this is really an illusory kind of recovery.
I don't consider it a recovery. I mean, what's recovery? Our primary schools are terrible, and our secondary schools are terrible. It's Americans are the ones who can't afford college anymore. Governments are really not giving out assistance like they used to. So some people that were getting government assistance are no longer getting government assistance.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it when, you're going to keep your money closer to the belt when, that that's going to be it.
Yeah.
seniors, for example, that the people know that they're not getting what they used to get.
But, so basically the article goes on to talk about mortgage debt. It lists some of the top cities with the highest mortgage balances. Predictably, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York are on there. But also trending on the list is Miami, Fort Lauderdale, which is your state and your area.
Yes.
Is that reflective? Well, actually, no, let me ask this question. What is the housing mortgage situation like in Florida?
To be honest, I think it is what it is really reflective of, if you ask me, is that people are not getting as much for their houses, when they do choose to come to Florida. And if you're going to go somewhere where there's no state income tax so that you have more of your money to keep.
Florida obviously was one of the strongest real estate markets in the nation pre-recession, along with Las Vegas and Nevada. It didn't collapse as elaborately or dramatically as Nevada area did, but I'm sure that it has slowed down, probably demonstrably.
Oh, yeah. There are areas that are ghost towns now in Southwest Florida.
You have ghost towns there? What are the names of some of these ghost towns? Do you know any of them?
One of them is Lehigh Acres, kind of outside of Fort Myers, Naples area.
Yeah.
And I know when I was looking for a place to live, I was told, whatever you do, stay away from that area.
Why? Because there's so much crime?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And it's basically, and the only reason there is because you can go through huge areas and there's nothing there. I mean, nothing. And then all of a sudden there's something there, and then nothing is there.
Oh, my God, wow.
It's kind of creepy, actually.
That does sound creepy.
And that's right where they built the airport, too. There's a huge international airport there, right outside of Lehigh Acres. Yeah, so Lehigh Acres was really supposed to be an up-and-coming development. It's even the butt of jokes that comedians tell around here. I went to a comedy club, and they're all making fun of Lehigh Acres.
Let's move on here. So back to student loan debts. The same way that it broke down mortgage debt, this article did break down the cities with the highest debt offenders for student loans. Memphis, Las Vegas, Atlanta, but also Baton Rouge was in here. And why would the South have more university or student loan debt? It appears on here quite a bit.
The South really got hit hard with the recession.
Yeah.
The South really got hit hard. The South and the Northeast. To be honest, in the Northeast, I think you had a lot more college-educated people that knew to say, okay, let's not do this. Their parents might have been college-educated to say that, whereas in the South, there was a resurgence. People that didn't necessarily have educated parents that were first generation going to college.
Yeah.
So they didn't know, and now they're getting hit.
So there's more of a tradition of going to college in the Northeast.
I believe so.
And I would agree with that, because you know what? If you're new to college, if you don't know the experience, you don't really know the secrets to how to, of the system, how to get assistance, how to lower your student loan debt burden. So I could see that because of those reasons, the South would be hit hard. But Baton Rouge surprises me, because not that there's any positive correlation between student loan debt and academic quality. However, when you associate the biggest amounts of debt, you think, oh, well, those are Ivy League schools. Baton Rouge and Louisiana in general is known for its horrid education system. I'm wondering...
Well, and that's the thing. People that can get into Ivy League schools understand, I think, more about finance and how to manage money. Yeah. Because if you think about it, look at the Ivy League education and how much that bloody costs.
To wrap up this article, then it goes into a third category, auto loan debts, which makes the argument that if auto loan balances increase, that signals economic growth and consumer spending. Would you agree with that premise? Hello? Annika, are you there? Hello?
Hello?
Hey.
Oh, there you are.
And this article posits that increased auto loan balances indicate economic growth and consumer spending being higher. Do you agree with that premise?
No. The fact is, cars cost more than they used to.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's why the balance has increased. You can't get a car for $10,000 anymore.
Annika just punching holes in this entire article. But you really are bringing up
I honestly think that the article, it's a feel-good point, and it wants us to feel great, and I'm all for feeling good.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have a feel-good article, have one with real purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Feel good for a reason. Something real. Have a feel-good piece because you tweak the numbers to make someone think.
One of the things that I found curious about this is why in the world does the average New Yorker have $16,000 in car debt? Why would you buy a car in New York City? I don't know.
So who knows? The people that can afford a car in New York City are going to be affording nice cars.
But I think
if you can afford to park in New York City, you're not going to buy a piece of junk. You're going to have a nice car.
That's true, and that would bring the auto loan balances higher, of course. So in summation, I agree with all of these points that you're saying. You're bringing up a lot of angles that this article did not. And however, I would criticize this for a different reason. Even if these statistics were accurate, or I'm not saying they aren't accurate, but even if they did point to a, quote, economic recovery, at the end of the day, after this, quote, financial crisis, none of the fundamentals of the economy were changed to prevent another crisis. So I think that I think you would take the opinion we are still in a recession, and I would say if we are not, then we will be facing another one in the next 15 to 20 years, and I think it will be worse.
And I'll be honest with you, I think maybe now we're in a recession. I think the word depression was not used, but absolutely should have been. We were not just in a recession. We were in a flat-out depression.
I agree that was a depression. I heard some people use it.
Now, I think every 20 years or so, it's going to be a continuing cycle unless we do something actively to break.
Correct. Okay, we're going to take a break, and then we will be back talking about Fox News accusing other media outlets of creating racial division. Okay, we'll see you on the other side.
Day. Smoking on some 93 Dr. Dre. C-Town, nigga, stop hating where the love at. Middle finger to the world, tell a fuck back. Balenciaga sneakers with the cargoes. Red cup of sangria, Carlo. Champagne spilling, nigga, we living. Before I eat that cat, you gotta shade that kitten. Feast get Christian Louboutin logos. Straight flights, yeah, layovers is a no-no. Yeah, rose by the bucket. Good green by the zip. Hood mama with that fat ass. Escorted to the VIP. We some young niggas from the ghetto, but ballin' like a hoop team. These niggas ain't ballin'. They just got hoop dreams.
And you're back
Champagne
with the word. This is an article from Media Matters for America. It's called The Wicked Irony of Fox Hosts Accusing Others of Creating Racial Division. And it begins on last night's episode of the TV show The Five. Have you seen The Five?
No.
Okay.
I don't have TV.
Oh, that's correct. Well, it's just like it's 4 conservatives and 1 liberal sitting at a table talking about issues, basically. But this article says the host, Eric Balling, claimed that Democrats strategically create racial division as a political strategy. Asked by fellow host Bob Beckel whether he believes that we sit around in the Democratic Party and want to have racial division, he replied, I do, yes. Do you agree?
I don't know that they want it for the same reasons we may be thinking. I think that any news outlet wants it because that's more news they can report.
They shouldn't be kind of torching the Democratic Party, but looking at themselves, the news media.
They want news. And race relations, that's hell.
Yeah. Well, this article believes it was an absurd charge coming from Balling, whose racial invective has included referring to the president of Gabon, his visit to the White House as a hoodlum in his house, and suggesting that President Obama was chugging 40s during a state visit to Ireland. Co-host Greg Gutfeld chimed in claiming that racial warfare right now is the crack cocaine of CNN, MSNBC, and most college campuses.
The media is hooked on race relations and, and reporting it. I mean, this goes back to our discussion a few episodes ago on the Zimmerman case.
And I think that they are wrong to deny their role. I mean, they have been covering...
No, they have a role.
They were covering Zimmerman as much as anybody. They were just on pro-Zimmerman. These news shows, they do follow scripts. So when selecting their words, why do they use this racialized language? What do they have to gain from this? And do you think this is the audience that Fox News is trying to target?
But Saturday Night Live even made fun of Obama after getting in his second term, where you see him again drinking malt liquor and having a big hip-hop rap party and being like, what are they going to do now I'm elected? And they really portrayed him as more of like a stereotypical...
So you believe that we should but listen, so you believe we should evaluate news programs the same as comedy?
No, but what I'm saying is people bring up so that they can not deal with the larger issues at hand.
So, okay. So if race is not the issue, why is this language that has in American society racially coded meanings like hoodlum in the his house, chugging 40s, and crack cocaine? Why would you use these words?
Fox is just as responsible as everybody else. Look at the Zimmerman case. How much of the actual case was talked about compared to how much of the racial tension was talked about?
Supposedly talking about this case for hours of the day.
Right. But if you look at what was actually talked about, it was talked about white versus black.
Yeah. Well, getting back to this article, it highlights the historical role that Fox News chief Roger Ailes has had in race relations historically. It says there are very few in American politics who have done more to strategically divide this country along racial lines for political and financial gain than Fox News chief Roger Ailes. While producing town hall-style events for Richard Nixon in 1968, Ailes sought to exploit racial tensions at the time by reportedly including, quote, a good, mean Wallaceite cab driver on the panel of people who got to ask the candidate questions. He said, wouldn't that be great? Some guy to sit there and say, all right, Mac, what about these niggers?
Who is exactly saying that he did that? It's an editorial. It's not fact.
I understand. I understand that.
If that is true, then he needs to be fired.
Well, I mean, that's not going to happen. I mean, he's kind of infamous, but he's also very essential to Fox News. I mean, it quotes Ira Silverman, the vice president of the American Jewish Committee, saying that while Ailes had used legitimate campaign techniques, it was troubling because he preyed upon the fears of the Jewish community. What do you say about this? So you do think?
I mean, that's absolutely a troubling thing. Preying upon anyone's fear is troubling.
Would you also agree that, in his role as chief of Fox News, he's preying on the fears of white people in general?
He uses whatever he can. Because, again, it's what sells.
But let's look at Fox News editorially speaking. I would contend that the audience, when stoking these fears, is targeted towards white people.
Oh, sure.
And so this article just finishes up by giving some more examples of Roger Ailes using race to divide. That's the author's words. From the network's obsession with the new Black Panthers to most famously, you've probably heard this quote, Glenn Beck suggesting that the president himself was a racist with a deep-seated hatred of white people and white culture.
Oh, no. He loves white people, especially their money. And black people's money, and Asian people's money, and Latino money. He loves any money he can get.
Ain't that the truth?
He doesn't look at the color of your skin, he looks at the color of your bill.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. So let's move on to Blackwater. So are you familiar with Blackwater?
Oh, very much so.
So, this article from InfoWars is talking about a lot of different aspects of where Blackwater is. The first part that I want to highlight is it says the private military company, previously known as I mean, no one really knows how to pronounce that one. XC Services. Before that, it was Blackwater USA, and Blackwater Worldwide has changed its name several times due to public scrutiny after the company was exposed for murdering 17 innocent Iraqi civilians in Nosor Square in Baghdad in September 2007. Do you remember when this happened?
I do.
Yeah, it was.
I remember very, very well.
What was your reaction to it?
I was disgusted, but at the same time, I could understand it. Anytime you've got mercenaries, even regular soldiers, there's going to be issues. When you are working with violence and guns and fear, there are going to be issues, especially mercenaries. You know, mercenaries are hired guns.
Indeed.
They work for whoever pays them.
Yeah, that's true.
They're tougher because they're not idealistic. They're not fighting for a cause. Mm-hmm. They're not fighting for their lives or their homes or their country. They are fighting for money.
Yeah.
And they can change sides depending on their company.
And whether it is the U.S. Army or, mercenaries, both of them have inculcated, at least we know on the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan, the sort of, demonization of the very people who they are there to allegedly help, So there's almost develops this hatred. You see the whole people as your enemy.
Well, yeah, we're supposed to help them, but they're the enemy. How do we help the enemy?
Well, I mean, they're not all the enemy, is the point.
No, but I'm saying, if you look at what we've been brought up since 9/11 to think, they're the enemy.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Drilled into your head. They're the enemy. Kill the enemy.
Yes, you're right. They drill into their head that some kind of ideology, denigrating Arabs as, Eric Prince, who's the founder of Blackwater. When he was in his younger years, he traveled the world with his father, visiting many historical sites, such as the German concentration camp Dachau. However, the most influential...
And I have family that died there, and I went there. It's not whatever. It's important.
I'm not saying it's not important. I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't speak German, so...
No, I know. It's called Dachau.
Okay. However, the most influential event he witnessed was the Rwandan genocide, in which 500,000 people were massacred by another tribe in East Africa in 1994. After that, he got a low-level internship in the White House, but he soon left to work for an ex-freedom fighter, freedom fighter, against the Soviets in Afghanistan. Prince's motivation to help save lives has ironically led him to a career of training military combatants to kill. Obviously this company is notorious. If he had these life experiences, seeing the traumatic, violent events the way he did, why would he promote more violence in his life?
Being a mercenary does not mean that you're this evil whatever person. Sometimes these mercenaries are used to protect. I mean, if you look at
you do not have to be evil. You do not have to be evil to promote violence.
Right, but I'm saying what Blackwater and other companies like that do is the fact is there are people, there are Americans that have to work in some of these countries.
So, but that doesn't answer the question. After seeing violence, why do you think he would gravitate towards a company?
Because that's what...
I mean, Blackwater's presence and the presence of other mercenaries did not prevent mass slaughter from occurring in Iraq. If anything, I think a lot of people would say it exacerbated that.
There were mercenaries that helped us win the American Revolutionary War.
I would say that, if we need to rely on mercenaries, if we don't have enough troops, then we shouldn't even be going into a country then.
You know what? That's not something I disagree with, but the fact is, we go into countries for political reasons. Whether or not we have to... Look, we should have been getting out of that area. I mean, we're a superpower. We should have been in and out of there, no problem. Mm-hmm. But we're not.
That was the plan. Do you think that these events psychologically affected Mr. Prince to desire to build an army of his own?
I don't know if I call it an army of his own, but...
Well, it is an army. Well, how is it not an army?
Because an army has a political agenda. He does not have a political agenda.
Well, I would say an army is just a collection of people, with a cause fighting for something, whether that be money or a country.
I don't agree.
Okay, let me reframe that question then. Do you think that these events psychologically affected him to make him desire to build his own fighting force?
Yes, that I would agree with, because, I think he wanted a force that he could have, so that, he could either go in to help rescue people or for people to hire.
See, you know what? The points you're making...
Because like you said, the whole thing with Rwanda, there were people that were stuck behind those lies.
Yeah.
And if, let's say I had enough money, I could hire Blackwater and say, go get my dad out. Or, that being just a... whatever. Go get my person out.
The points you are making are not without merit, and I can't just dismiss them offhand, but at the same time...
I'm being devil's advocate, too.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think, it is so hard for us, especially people who know about some of these atrocities that have been committed by Blackwater soldiers, to see the benevolent mission. It's hard to believe that.
A lot of these people, these soldiers that get hired by Blackwater, when you've been a soldier, you start to develop a God complex to an extent.
Oh.
You get a lot of people that join for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Oh, I can get a gun and go kill people. You do get a lot of people that are not psychologically balanced. I want to do X, Y, Z and get hired for this, when in reality they just want to kill people.
Yeah, so the fact that...
You do hear of the atrocities, but this was the biggest atrocity by a lot. But there are also atrocities committed by, look at Abu Ghraib, for example.
Yeah, and those were not Blackwater, that was American soldiers.
Willy-nilly, but how many people really died at Abu Ghraib that we covered up, that we don't know?
Yeah, and those were...
All we know is because there was a whistleblower.
And those were American soldiers, not mercenaries.
Oh, I think they can cover it up worse than the military. I think our military can cover it up a lot better than an organization like that.
For what reasons?
Because our government has a lot more resources to cover something up.
In terms of money?
All kinds of resources. We can bag order the press for some things. There's a lot of resources that the military has. Do I agree with what a lot of Blackwater does? Some I do, some I don't. Do I agree with their right to exist? Absolutely. Somebody I love, I would want a team like Blackwater to be able to go in and try and extract.
So do you believe that I have a two-pronged question here. If you believe in their right to exist, do you think that mercenaries should have a place in American military operations, one? And number two, substantial government contracts are going to these corporations. Do you think that this government money should be diverted to organizations like Blackwater? Yeah, well, I think it goes beyond that. In some ways, the lines have blurred between our military and mercenary organizations.
Absolutely, they have. Because it's an accountability thing.
Yeah, but also...
It's plausible deniability.
Yeah,
and I think... It all comes down to plausible deniability. That's always going to happen.
I don't think mercenaries are necessary, because I don't think this maintenance of empire and this intervention and invasion is necessary. But, if we're looking in the context of the upkeep of the American empire, I can say, okay, yeah, they're probably necessary. But in a moral sense, I don't think that we should be employing. I don't think taxpayer money should be going to Blackwater.
Well, it isn't. Taxpayer money isn't. It's some of the taxpayer money going to mob-owned businesses.
Hold on.
Essentially.
Hold on.
It's a matter of who bids for a contract.
Okay, but listen to me for a second. If they are rewarded with a contract, okay, what money are they paid with?
Well, what I'm saying is they're a company like anybody else.
But it is taxpayer money.
Well, okay, I guess you can call it that. Yeah.
Well, what else would it be?
General Accounting Office.
What is that?
That's the office that approves all the contracts, everything.
Okay. Many people would say, well, there has been evidence of corruption, that not necessarily these are the best bids, necessarily.
I could see that starting under the Bush administration, maybe.
Okay. Well, let's move on with more pieces of this article. So according to, it cites reporter Jeremy Scahill's report titled Blackwater's Black Ops, published in The Nation magazine in 2010. Scahill ties the private defense company's work to several multinational corporations, such as Monsanto, Chevron, Walt Disney, and the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. Joseph Kofor Black, a former CIA official who now leads one of Blackwater's divisions, harbors a reputation of being particularly vicious. And then it talks about these corporate relations the company has, that it would include intelligence services to the biotech giant Monsanto through infiltration of animal rights activists, anti-genetically modified foods activists, and other potential oppositions. Wilson says they hired the company to keep track of public disclosure of its opponents. Do you think it is right for Monsanto to target private citizens who choose to go towards activism? Just focusing on Monsanto. So you're saying that because it's so common that it's justified in doing this?
I'm not saying it's justified. I'm just saying that's what they do.
Well,
All the companies
that's
do
what
it.
they do. But we're talking about. Let's go one step further. Do you think that Monsanto should be allowed to do this?
Well, technically, they're not allowed. None of them are. If they get caught, they get in trouble. Just because you know something, knowing something and being able to catch it and prove it are two different things.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So it goes on to say, this one division of Blackwater sought to become the intelligence arm of Monsanto by offering to provide operatives to infiltrate activist groups organizing against multinational biotech firms. Blackwater could have our persons actually join activist groups legally, this person said, and he acknowledged they'd be paid by Monsanto. So what can these animal rights activists do that makes Monsanto so threatened to bring in Blackwater?
I'm an animal rights activist and have been for years. I even, I did a protest, was in the, Congress. I'm very pro-animal. Those who know me know it. I rescue, I foster, some of these groups will go to a meat processing plant and put something in the, I can't remember the name of the group that did it, but they basically sabotaged the processing plant and cost, millions of dollars to this one company by destroying their equipment.
Do you think that the argument of animal rights justifies this?
Absolutely not. No matter how you feel, you work and you change the law.
Yeah.
You can't destroy that company's property.
Yeah.
I may hate what they do, but I got to find a way to do it legally.
See, I would say that if we move on from your point that there is this threat, why would you hire Blackwater? That seems like kind of like trying to shoot a squirrel with a machine gun. Isn't this wrong, though, to infiltrate these groups proactively before they even commit crimes?
No, because when you've got somebody that costs $1 million in advance,
but that's
like you said, like the article said, they infiltrate legally.
I don't think that it said legally.
That's the thing.
A few minutes ago, didn't you say that this industrial espionage is illegal?
If I want to infiltrate a group, all right, what's wrong with that? I can take money for that.
I see
There's
a lot
nothing
wrong with
illegal
that.
about that.
Because I think that is...
Ethically, it may be wrong, but there's nothing illegal.
I don't always see legal and moral as the same thing, and I think a lot of times they're not the same thing.
But the fact is, legal is legal. Do I find it immoral to do X, Y, Z? Sodomy. Sodomy is illegal in some places.
Indeed, and oral sex is illegal in Maryland.
And is it immoral? I don't think it's immoral.
Yeah.
But it's illegal. You see what I'm saying? again, what we believe and what is reality sometimes are different, and it's a fine line, and it sucks sometimes. But the laws are there for a reason. If we don't abide by the laws, we have chaos.
Well,
and chaos won't suit anybody.
But let's take that example that you just used. People have been disobeying these sodomy laws, and there has not been chaos.
Because we have so many laws that they don't all get enforced.
So there's chaos because of the law, you're saying?
Catching the murderer is more important than catching the sodomite.
Yeah.
So they prioritize some of the laws. The system is flawed.
That's true.
It's critically flawed. It sucks that we can't condemn it. You know, we can condemn it personally, but that's all we can do.
Yeah. Well, okay, what would you say to somebody who, was an animal rights activist and, is saying, well, this is not fair. We are just, public citizens. We're in this group fighting for a cause. We don't have the resources Monsanto does. Why should they be allowed to infiltrate our group when they have millions of dollars more than us?
Because that's capitalism, and that's just the way it goes. To screen our people better. To who we allow with access,
Yeah, but I think that's shifting. That's shifting the blame. But looking forward in terms of solutions to this impasse, how do you think that animal rights activists can deal with this?
Crazy people are like, we have to infiltrate and we have to be spies, and
Yeah,
and I
you're
think
right.
It damages their own credibility.
I guess I have more tolerance for these what you term stupid actions because, I see some of them as morally justified. And
what I have personal tolerance for versus what I agree with is different. And to be honest, I really think that there is such a thing as bad press, and there is such a thing as turning on.
But going back to the actions of these, like more radical groups, like I was saying, like I see them as justified because I think that they have a cause that is greater than that of the corrupt law. And the argument for that is the fact that in this country, laws are bought and purchased, by lobbyists. The law
is very true.
Inherent in the system. The law is not going to be commiserate with the aims of a group like PETA or the Animal Liberation Front. That's going to be totally against them, So
but if they get enough grassroots support, if they let people know what they're doing and why they're doing it, I think it will grow and grow. Look how many animal lovers are in this country.
Yeah.
Look at the crazy pet products. People buy there's nail polish for dogs and, all kinds of this stuff. People love their animals. Groups love this. It's groups, and that's the thing. It's marketing. If they marketed what some of these other companies are doing in the right light, they would have no problem getting these laws passed. People would demand them along those lines.
In conclusion, so like I said, I am partial to a radical animal rights view, but at the same time, pragmatically, I completely agree the fact that while I may say, okay, I believe that action is justified, at the same time, you are absolutely right when you say that gives these companies more rhetorical weapons to say, oh, these guys are crazy. Look at this, what they did, So in a sense, you have to be smart about this.
Exactly.
Let's move on.
That's the only way to win against these big companies with the big resources. You have to play it's all a game.
Yeah, and you know what? I think there are some activists who are just so idealistic. They want to play in this sort of parallel game, but what they don't realize is, if you're fighting for something in the system of capitalism, you don't necessarily have to sell yourself out, but to get your cause advanced, you have to use those elements of capitalism that can help you for your advantage.
Exactly. Like if you know Monsanto is breaking a law, you need to advertise the hell out of that.
And use our commercial media.
You need to document it.
Yeah.
You need to document it, you need to prove it, and you need to advertise that fact and get people so angry that you can get a majority of people to say, hey, wait a minute, these guys are doing that. That's wrong. Let's talk to our congressman. Let's talk to our senator. Let's put a stop to it. If public opinion sways to the point where it costs them money, they'll stop.
I agree.
That's what it comes down to.
I agree. And you know what? It sucks that activists will have to play that game, and, more radical people would have to play that game. But I think that they do need to realize that. They have to come to terms with the system that they are in. But that's hard for a lot of people because they say, well, my ideals are greater. And I think I would say to them, your ideals are great, but you know what? If you don't play the game like you're saying, you're never going to be able to implement your ideals.
Right. And at the end of the day, the fact is you want it to change. At the end of the day, that's what's important. You want to affect the change.
Yes.
If you go crazy and you come off as such a crazy person that, the general public turns their back on you, there's nothing you can do. You didn't affect any change.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
It's all the court of public opinion.
And you know what? I think that, that argument could be made for the Tea Party, that they really didn't affect as much change as they wanted to because they were so effectively either made themselves look deranged or were portrayed that way. They made it so easy.
Yeah. When they started out, I was an advocate for the Tea Party. I thought it was a great idea when they started out.
But by the time you
then
see...
they went a little too far and went nuts, and I was like, let's back off these.
I mean, they're not a group that any of us would want to associate with,
Not anymore. In the beginning, though, it was great.
Yeah, I mean, but then by, a number of years or a number of months later, you had people, comparing Hitler to, Obama and, holding swastikas and really outrageous
and
things.
the Tea Party really hasn't been around that much. It's only been a few years.
Yeah, it's true, but
they went from I thought, a good group to a bunch of nut jobs in a very short time.
Yeah, and I think the argument is out there. I'm not like a scholar of the Tea Party, and, I think it's so soon that we don't know all the information about it. Like, we're going to have to wait for history and posterity a little bit. But I think there's a convincing argument that it did start out as a libertarian grassroots organization, and by the time the 2010 midterms rolled around, they were a neoconservative organization bankrolled by millionaires. So, I mean, how did that happen?
Yeah. I think they sold out, to be honest.
They sold out.
Yeah, they saw the money. They saw the dollar signs, and there went the ideal.
And, they were on Fox News, and they got some candidates elected. But in the end of the day, because they they sold out so far, they didn't achieve anything. So I think what's important...
But I think PETA sold out. I think PETA sold out big time.
Yeah. So the important thing is to strike a middle ground and a balance between keeping your ideals that are original to you, foundational, and then, playing the system, but not going too far to either side.
Right. And you don't go too far too fast either.
Yeah.
You have to build up slowly.
And you know what?
Established.
And the Tea Party, they did move really fast.
Oh my God, yes.
And they moved fast because they courted money and they courted media. This is a great discussion, and I enjoy this greatly, but let's continue going through this article. So, back to Blackwater, to bring it back. On September 3rd, 2010, the New York Times published a report stating Blackwater Worldwide has created a web of more than 30 shell companies or subsidiaries, in part to obtain millions of dollars in American government contracts. Since 2001, the intelligence agency, the CIA, has awarded up to $600 million in classified contracts to Blackwater. The transactions were financed by Bank of America, and 5 former senior Blackwater executives, including its former president, were facing weapons charges. Talking in terms of the executive who's at the head of this, we were talking about him, Prince. His last name is Prince. He has since left the country and relocated to Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates. One of the reasons he gave was that there are no labor unions there, but Jeremy Scahill, the reporter, said it also has no extradition treaty with the United States. Well, no, I mean, so you don't think that he would potentially...
The fact is, if you're going to do a lot of business in the Middle East, and you're going to live over there, Abu Dhabi is a pretty damn nice place to be.
Yes, but it's also a nice place...
So, it's not like he's going to move to Venezuela if he's doing business in the Middle East.
Well, Blackwater wouldn't, be welcome in Venezuela, but...
But you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
That's my point.
But I think an equally convincing argument is, well, it's also, Abu Dhabi is also a great place if you're running away from American law. And some of you, you ran and started a company that had major executives that are facing investigations by the State Department for weapons charges.
Because Blackwater is a black eye, and they want to bring it down.
But work with me here. So in American corporate culture, there is culpability at the top because they are responsible to shareholders. So usually who is usually who is the sacrificial lamb? The people at the top. Why is this situation different that he's able to just escape to Abu Dhabi? If this was like GE, if this was like Kraft Foods and some scandal erupted, it would be the person at the top who goes, not some, other middlemen.
Unless he potentially really didn't have any knowledge of that.
But I'm saying in a normal situation, even if these sacrificial lambs have nothing to do with it, they still get canned.
They were at the head of the subsidiary company. You can't expect the president of the guy who owned all the subsidiaries to, watch over them. That's why they are subsidiaries.
See, I have to say this. If you are running a multinational corporation that is responsible for deaths, whether they be justified or not, taking millions of taxpayer money and, basically legally trafficking in weapons, I think you need to have that accountability. I think you need to ensure that this type of stuff does not happen. And you know what? I would hold you accountable if you are fostering a culture of corruption. So I do hold, I hold those people accountable, but yeah, I hold him accountable too, and I think the law should.
Well, again, I worked at a company that had more subsidiaries and sister companies than you know what to do with. They were very large arms dealer, trafficker.
This goes to the concept of too big to fail, which usually applies to banks. But in this case, a corporation that has this much consequence and is receiving this much public money and is this consequential in American foreign policy should not be too big to hold its leader accountable.
Do I agree with you? Yeah, but the fact is, that's what happens.
Yeah, and I'm not disputing that's what happens, but I'm just saying that this is a special case because I know if this was a normal company, and by that I mean not one that's getting contracts or not one that has this mercenary army, this would not, you see every year tons of Wall Street CEOs, founders, leaders, off with their heads if a scandal comes out. This is the exception. This is getting a different situation than most companies get.
Okay, but explain to me this scandal you're referring to. There was one big incident where some people went nuts and killed people. Should be held personally accountable?
Well, let me just bring up some of the other scandals, and we can talk about them.
Okay.
So in terms of Blackwater, zooming before this incident in 2007, Blackwater was sued by the families of 4 contractors killed in Fallujah in March 2004. The families, blah, 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 blah. Then they were called to testify before the House Government Reform Committee in 2007. Two former... No, I'm not done. I'm not done.
Maybe because of negligence.
I'm not done, though.
I'm sorry. Come on now.
I'm not done yet. There is a list of these things that makes this very sketchy company. Let me continue. Okay, so 2 former employees claimed that Blackwater defrauded the federal government on a security contract given after Hurricane Katrina. A federal judge, blah, blah, blah. There was a civil lawsuit alleging that Blackwater defrauded the federal government of money when billing it for work in Iraq and Afghanistan. And then in terms of litigation over actions in Iraq, the Center for Constitutional Rights filed a suit against Blackwater under the Alien Tort Claims Act on behalf of injured Iraqi families. And that was during the Baghdad shootings. Then in 2009, another lawsuit was filed alleging that Blackwater employees shot and killed 3 members of an Iraqi family who were traveling from the airport to the city on July 1st, 2007.
Okay, great. I can file a lawsuit for whatever I damn feel like. That doesn't make it a righteous claim. Were there any of these cases that were actually tried, convicted? I mean, any of them?
Yes. There was a case called Helvinston et al. Versus Blackwater Security. Also, the Justice Department did bring criminal charges against 5 Blackwater employees. So many of these have reached trial.
But again, see,
And the Iraqi government expelled them.
I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard to say whether or not he should be personally accountable for these things. The president of the company?
Okay, well that's...
No.
What about all these Iraqis that have been killed?
I mean, I don't know. I am playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
You know, do I think that that they probably have some accountability? Absolutely. Do I know how much? No. It's kind of all up in the air, But in general, I really, I'm more agreeing. I think Blackwater has accountability. Whether he personally has accountability, I don't know.
So you
I need to learn more about each incident.
But
before I could say,
okay,
he needs.
And I get that. But in an abstract situation, doesn't the founder and the leader, you have good things that come with being the leader. You get millions of dollars, but you have this downside in the fact that at the end of the day, you must take responsibility for your organization.
That's like telling, when you are that big, you cannot take personal accountability. You can't.
You know what? If your organization is that big to the fact where it's out of control of any of your executives and no one seems to be able to rein in these repeated incidents, then I think that you shouldn't be that large, or you should not be receiving taxpayer money.
What needs to happen is that the board of directors needs to oust him and get somebody in there who does know what they're doing.
Well, I believe that he should be brought to justice.
I think that's a crock of crap.
Well,
that's inflammatory.
Listen, but what am I trying to say? Say he did travel to Abu Dhabi because it was an environment of impunity where he could escape justice. Who would admit that? Of course he's going to say something else. He's the head of a corporate company.
I understand that, but I think that the only reason the journalist brought it up was to inflame the reader. What are the numbers? How many people have died?
Okay.
What are the actual numbers?
Okay. Give me 1 second. Because it was not included in this one article.
Exactly. That's what makes me curious. Infowars.com?
Well, okay. You can't say something about a website from its name. I will admit that I do get articles from InfoWars, but it is sometimes a notoriously unreliable resource. However, Jeremy Scahill is not.
Okay. Like I said, it just sounds a little off.
Well, what sounds off about it?
It was, I hate Blackwater, blah, 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 blah. If you look at the title, The Mysterious New Owner of, but yet they were trashing Prince the whole time. So the article really has nothing to do with the new owner of Blackwater worldwide. Nothing.
It's a misleading headline, but I don't think that invalidates the information that is in here or the arguments presented.
I don't think this particular article was well done.
Okay. Well,
Not this particular one.
InfoWars is fairly shoddy, and I don't have the numbers about Blackwater. I'm just getting numbers.
Whoa. You know what I just realized? They took bits and pieces of his Skahill's report. The headline and the article have nothing to do with each other.
So the article finishes up, it seems unlikely that multinational corporations such as Monsanto need to hire veteran war assassins to protect themselves against harmless grassroots organizations.
Veteran war assassin? Who's the war assassin? This is just an inflammatory trash, right?
People whose job it is to kill Iraqis. Well, that's what their job is. That's what their job is in practice. You're occupying this nation.
If these people really wanted to go on killing sprees, there would be a lot more dead. A lot more dead. Because these guys all have automatic weapons. They don't go around just randomly assassinating people.
And I'm not saying that either, but I think that in a larger context, this organization served in the past tense, oppress these people and, bring this almost military regime upon them.
No, I don't think so in the slightest. I think that's a little naive.
You think it's naive? I think that's realistic.
I think Blackwater's worked for places like Disney and Royal Caribbean.
Well, I'm not talking about when they're dealings with Walt Disney. I'm talking about Iraq.
I understand that, but Iraq is one little portion of what they do. They don't only work in Iraq.
Iraq is the reason...
They work in places like Mexico City where kidnappings are rampant. They work all over the world.
Iraq is the reason that any of us even know what Blackwater is. It is pivotal to understanding their role in history.
They had a bad incident in Iraq, and that's how we know what they are.
Had multiple...
And are they paying for that? Absolutely.
I think they should.
Fuck no. That's your moralistic sense. And yeah, absolutely they should suffer, but they're never going to, and that's life.
See, I would disagree with you in the sense that they never will. I think if the system under the system, they never will. But I do believe change is possible.
Right, but by the time it happens, these people will be, long past, long gone. Change is absolutely possible, but it takes time.
Well, I hope for something better than that. But I think that, I don't know. Let's go. I feel like a future is possible where these people will be held accountable. But
absolutely. In the future, absolutely.
Well, we need to wrap up this article. So that was a very vibrant conversation. I think, in summation, I think it's an example of we don't disagree on most of the reality of the situation. We're just emphasizing different points. And I think I am more idealistic. I don't think that's naive. I think people would say I'm naive, but I think I'm just holding accountable Blackwater.
No, you're very idealistic, and I totally believe, and I respect that, and that's kind of what I love about you.
Let's take a break, and then we are going to come back and finish by discussing the royal baby as media phenomenon. Who was behind this saturation of the royal baby in the world media? We will talk about that when we come back.
I'll be good in bed, but I'll be back to what it is. Oh, what's up? Could a nigga get in them guys? I cut you up like you ain't been cut. Show your ass how to really catch a nut. You could give me your number. I'll call you and I'll follow that ass anymore. I take you home and let you juggle my while I'm being tan down off squad. Is it bad that I never made love? No, I never did. But I should know how to fuck up you back.
You're back with the word. We're going to now discuss the royal baby. However, first I need to update the listeners on some news that's broken within the past segment. Apparently, it has come out that the driver of the infamous Spanish train that dramatically crashed bragged on Facebook about going too fast in his train before this crash happened. Also, the country of Tunisia has erupted in protest after the killing of an opposition leader.
He bragged about that?
Because I think they're investigating him now, so they uncovered it. But this is from Huffington Business, United Kingdom. It's entitled "The Royal Baby: Greatest Product Launch Campaign Britain Has Ever Seen?" ? It says, from the mass-market lifestyle brand Clarence House, the brand's PR pixies arranged a year-long campaign incorporating a wedding-based stunt, a boat party, several celebrity world tours, and a much-hyped mystery unveiling. The whole thing is enough to make an old hand like me exhausted, but will it pay off? I think it did pay off in spades. The very specific way that the royal family went about handling the pregnancy, the wedding, and the birth of the baby with the media really increased their credibility, whether that was for good or for bad.
Come on, look, please. You know what? These poor kids were so pressured into having a kid fast, it's not even funny. Because, the queen is old. It's her 60th, it's her diamond jubilee, blah, blah, blah. It's perfect to get it all in the same year. How great is that?
Another story has just broke from the Russian news agency RIA Novosti. And I bring this up not because it's necessarily consequential, but because it is strange. Apparently, a woman in the far eastern Siberian region of Russia is suspected of cooking her baby.
Doesn't surprise me. I mean, there's crazy people everywhere.
And that's awful. Cooking your baby, oh my God. The royal baby would not be roasted, I don't believe.
No, because there would be people that would stop that because she's never alone.
Kate, whatever her title, Duchess, whatever, she wouldn't even have an opportunity to roast her baby.
None. I mean, yes, it's a big money maker, and it's not that the monarchy's making any money from this. The people that are making money are all the private people that are selling all this stuff.
Yeah, that's true. And the media.
That are making and selling it.
Yeah, the media.
The media.
The article goes on to say, following the official launch announcement, Twitter action reached 25,300 tweets per minute. Clarence House kept a handle on the conversation. I don't know. They also arranged supporting tweets from brand-appropriate influencers, including the Daily Mail and the British monarchy. The brand will also be pleased that they have ironed out creases in their social media machine. Their 2011 royal wedding stunt actually received a strikingly negative reception among British tweeters.
Wait, what stunt was that? I don't understand what they're talking about. What's the royal wedding stunt?
They're referring to it as a stunt because it's a staged media event.
Oh, please, come on. Of course it's a staged media event. They're freaking royal.
Just saying, a lot of royals get married under the radar, like ones we don't know about.
Right, but the vast majority of them don't, especially the British royals.
I don't think you can say that at all. There's no way to compare Henry VIII to this. There was no mass media back then. Yeah.
There was just as much then as there is now. That's what I'm saying. Just different kinds of branding.
I guess. I mean, I can agree with you, but I think it's just comparing incompatible situations.
But what I'm comparing is that it's an event. It's not like it's a staged event, no matter how you slice it.
So blah blah blah. This article goes on to say that this organization, Clarence House, has run a PR campaign which stands as a benchmark for taking advantage of a weakened media. Now with newsrooms collapsing and commentary fracturing across cyberspace, Clarence House has realized the media has a use for the brand values its products offer. Pappy nationalism and soft focus shots of brunette women in dresses, aka fluff journalism.
Yeah, but you know what? Fluff journalism is 90% of what's out there now.
I don't think so, but I think it's
newsrooms collapsing? I don't believe that's true. Only print newsrooms. You know,
Well-
broadcast getting puffier by the day? Absolutely, because
Well, I would say that it's not just print. I mean, CNN even has closed many world bureaus in the past few decades, or the past decade. So, I mean, many of these news organizations' operations have become much more skeletal. You know, one of the last quotes I want to bring from this, on BBC Breakfast this morning, the Republican, so that means anti-monarchy, campaigner Graham Swift claimed that Visit Britain, which I guess is some organization, predicted a near zero change in tourism revenues. So, from this. So I would...
People don't visit England to see the royals because they don't ever get to see the royals.
Royal baby enthusiasts like my mother would say that there is a lot of positive economic benefit from all this pomp and circumstance.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, Americans are watching TV, so the advertisers, have that.
Yeah, I don't
There's
even
a
think
lot
it's.
of that,
But when they watch Fox News about the royal baby, that doesn't benefit Britain. But I don't think that any sort of economic claim to the well-being of England justifies this.
I don't think there's any significant income from this.
So
No,
why
not at all.
do people still try to justify their consumption of the royal baby phenomenon using these hard numbers, or what they think are hard numbers?
Because it's a guilty pleasure and people don't want to admit it.
Yeah, that's what I think. You know what? My problem is not necessarily that people want to learn about royal baby. I think you should learn whatever you want. But people are acting like this is actually important.
You're learning about the royal baby because you want to learn about the royal baby.
Like
And
my
it's
mom
discussion.
is basically trying to, and I'm not saying my mom is representative of everyone, but I think she's representative of casual news viewers, And she's trying to pass her interest off as, this is, a very serious economic benefit to England. No, it's not. This is a puff piece.
What it is it's your mom and people like her saying that, I really like this royal baby, but how do I make it sound like I'm not liking the royal baby?
Like this is an academic topic,
I want to like the royal baby, but I feel guilty for liking the royal baby. How do I feel less guilty?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, it's going to bring the economy to England. Yay, go royal baby. That's what it is. It's because, again, we're too intelligent to be happy about the royal baby for any other reason.
Yes. Thank you for
We're
saying it.
intelligent people. Why would we be happy for people had a kid?
Mm-hmm.
Let's justify it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I did. It's going to bring in money. Okay, well, we like the kid. I mean, and like I said, I am not calling your mom dumb. I am not calling anybody anything. I am just saying that sometimes in this world, it is easier to justify our guilty pleasures.
I totally
I'm
agree.
not watching Kim Kardashian because I like Kim Kardashian. I'm watching it as a look into sociological American behavior. That's what it is.
Kim Kardashian is a very significant American these days.
But if you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, I totally get it.
If it's a guilty pleasure, I'm going to find a way to justify it.
Well, I totally
I'm
agree.
watching Honey Boo Boo because I want insight into the world of pageantry. Please. And I am not saying I watch Honey Boo Boo because I don't.
Lies.
But
Lies.
Yeah, I don't have TV, so I couldn't watch it if I wanted to. So there. But anyways, that's my point. We will do anything in this world to justify our guilty pleasure.
Well, I have another question that is in that same vein. I don't hear a lot of people, or as many people, attempting to justify their consumption of just average American celebrity culture in terms of economic
Because
growth.
Americans are dumb.
Well, you just said we're
We
smart
don't
people.
care. No. Your mother is a smart person. The average American is dumb.
Okay.
Okay? And look at what we tend to consume. And that will tell you right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The average American is dumb. And you know what? Everybody who hates the fact that I say it, write me an email and explain why you're smart. Okay? We have kids that can't tell the difference between Y-O-U-R, Y-O-U-apostrophe-R-E, part of where this comes in.
I kind of feel like there's
Yeah.
a certain element of America that's always been like this.
A certain element, and it seems like that element is growing. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. We have the best collegiate system in the world, but our primary and secondary education sucks.
Yeah.
You know, every other country in the world, they learn more than one language. Every other country. We don't.
Well, we don't feel, I'm not going to say we don't have to, but we don't feel like we need to because we act as the hegemon in the world.
Yeah, we're America, man. We're cool. We don't need no fucking stinking language. And that's exactly what's the reason that America is eventually going to go down in flames.
Yeah.
Because we act like that.
Well, let me ask you
We
the question.
act like we are the be-all and end-all of the world.
I think you have good points, but you didn't exactly answer the question, which is why do people justify this consumption of the royal baby in terms of economic growth, but not celebrities?
The royal baby is not your average celebrity.
Yeah, that's
The
true.
royal baby is born to this life. And I think that's the other thing. How many times are little girls taught when they're little, you could be a princess when you grow up?
Yeah. Yeah,
You
it's
know?
like a fairy tale.
That's what we're taught. The fairy tale. The fairy tale is the royalty.
And you know how many times I heard the phrase fairy tale during that effing royal wedding? Like, that's really what they were selling was a fairy tale.
Absolutely.
You know?
Because that's what the monarchy is. Everybody knows the monarchy has nothing to do with reality. We are the fairy tale.
Yeah.
And we want the fairy tale.
But I feel like some people take this actually seriously.
There are, like I said, there are some dumbass people out there who do take it seriously. But, you know, hopefully they are not listeners of the word, or if they are, they're learning something every once in a while.
I hope so. I would hope that somebody's learning something from this. But I guess I just don't understand the American enthusiasm about this, because it's like we fought a revolution to rid ourselves of monarchy. Why would we think the royal baby?
That's the point. We have this superiority.
I don't think that that's the attitude out there. I think that people are disconnected from our history as a nation that historically opposed monarchy. I think that people are actually enthralled, and I think they're buying into this whole idea.
No, I do agree with you. I think that that's pretty much what it is. You know, it's the little girl told she could be a princess.
Yeah, it's not like,
You know,
laughing, because I don't know anybody besides me who is actually, I mean, I'm not making fun of them, so it's not even me, but I don't know anybody who's following it who's making fun of them.
No, you're right. I was just kind of goofing around, but that's
that's funny, but
it's the fairy tale.
Yeah.
It's the fairy tale world that we all want to be a part of. We all want to be a prince or a princess and have the money and the coaches and they're built into a legacy like that. I think we are very envious that they have that, and we all secretly want it.
Like, I don't understand why people give them credit for inheriting something.
You're just jealous.
So we've seen major stories such as the porn censorship in the UK break this week, but subsequently they were ignored. So why is the royal baby favored as a news item?
Well, because the royal baby is a happy thing. Nobody can complain that having a new royal baby sucks. That's why. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of a
Nobody
uniting
can
thing.
complain about it. There's nothing bad about the child being born. Nothing.
No. Yeah. Well, I think I say bad things about the way the media is obsessed with it.
He was just born.
I mean,
That was it.
yeah. I mean, you're totally right. I mean, a lot of people would go to bat for this poor defenseless baby. Who besides me is gonna go to bat for porn? You know, like.
Hey, I go to bat for porn any day of the week.
Well, that's why you're on the show. Okay, do you think that it hurts the news as a whole for events manufactured by PR firms to report it as news?
News is what we make it to be. We choose what is news.
So
What
it
do you think
doesn't.
about it?
So you're saying that it does not hurt the concept of news?
No, it does not hurt the concept of news.
I mean, that's subjective, you know.
What, you can look it up. What is the actual dictionary.com definition of news?
I can tell you what media theorist Michael Parenti and also Steve Postman, Neil Postman, who wrote about these things. Basically, they say exactly what you said. It is the news is, number one, what is reported. Number two, what journalists find significant. Number three, what people find significant. So royal baby is news, basically.
The royal baby is news because we have chosen to make the royal baby news.
I agree with you. Do you think the
It is
news...
news because we chose to make it that.
Do you think the news legitimacy is eroded when the royal baby gets so much coverage?
Oh, no, not at all. I think the legitimacy of news has been eroded because of the nature of the legitimacy of news.
So,
You
yeah.
know, we've had so much BS talked about as news that nobody cares anymore.
I do.
Okay, most people don't care anymore.
And on that note, I think that we need to go. We've almost been recording for 3 hours. Oh my God, it's 1 a.m. So, any last thoughts on anything that we talked about today?
No, I think we've covered things pretty damn thoroughly.
I believe we did, but, you know, we cover a lot of very inciting topics, a lot of emotions, and serious and also not serious. And
That's what makes it news.
as always, I appreciate your input. And again, if people want to shoot you an email or start a correspondence, how should they do so?
Either through you or my email address is WOLFYNE@yahoo.com or at gmail.com.
And as always, I am Jakob, Jakob, music, musick, dash Miller, Miller, and feel free to friend request me or send me a message, what have you. And thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Hello, darling. Yeah, and what we're dealing with today seems to be pretty serious.
There's a lot of other stuff, you know, going
Like
on.
the whole Blackwater thing. That's pretty
Oh, and that's
fucking
just
serious.
that's like the pits of hell, pretty much.
Is there anything I don't have strong feelings on?
Things
Did you
that you
read the
have-
latest on Amanda Bynes? Oh, I think maybe you sent it to me, that she's basically schizophrenic.
Yeah, believe me, I read 6 news articles on Amanda Bynes today. I'm all
But
over
you know
that.
what? I don't believe it. I think she's doing this so she can get out of whatever, you know, she's trying to get out of.
What is she trying to get out of?
Wasn't she just arrested? I mean,
Yeah, she was. She was arrested for throwing a bong out the window.
yeah. So there's a drug charge with that. There's a littering, not that she care, but, you know. But,
Yeah, I mean, I'm following it, but I really have no idea. I mean, it's bizarre, whatever it is. 6 articles I read today on Amanda Bynes. Apparently she started hearing voices when she was still in her teens. So this has been going on for quite a while.
yeah, so see, that's bullshit.
Now, granted, I think it was one of the offshoot disorders. It was like schizoaffective, but I mean, her symptoms began their onset at like age 15. Like, I don't think there's enough evidence to say that she's faking it.
Right, I don't know, but I'm saying it just sounds a little off.
She would have a motive to do so, but I mean, still, that's putting up with a lot of BS because, I mean, if you think about it, having to go to a psych ward, I mean, that's a lot of effort to get out of this.
Better than jail.
Yeah, I guess it is better than jail, but I mean, still, it's a very elaborate ruse if it's a fake, you know.
Well, she's outdated. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
Look at Lindsay's got all this shit, and now she's getting a reality show.
yeah, it's true. You know what? And now we can see maybe that's a valid path, right? I'm having that constant struggle of reading my own handwriting.
Oh God, yeah. So just give me 2 seconds to finish eating this egg roll.
And so I'm speaking as an outsider to that entire like system. And with this issue, whenever it involves violence and war and military, I will admit I do come with a very strong ideological perspective. having a very emotional reaction. Shouldn't that make you more wary of like military in general?
Oh, it makes me disgusted by the military. I wanted to join the military.
Yeah.
You know, but I was 17 and I couldn't, and then I had my accident.
This is just making my head spin because I guess I'm trying to understand why I look at this the way I do. And I think because I look at the entire Iraq operation as criminal in itself, that's totally going to color the way that I look at this. So, I mean, obviously I'm going to see this as criminal as well. I mean,
we have no credibility in the region.
I don't know why this troubles me so much. I just feel so passionately,
Because it's wrong. It's wrong. It's sickening. It's wrong. We never had any business in the first place. It was, oh, they got us, let's get them. It should have been coordinated.
And I think that's why kind of my frustration is pouring over at the Blackwater leader, because I see him as just a cog in this system that's...
I think he hired some real assholes along the way, because when you're dealing with these type of people, you get more assholes than you get good people.
We're going to have to suspend this conversation until later, but let's go.
We'll never finish it.
But it just, for some reason, I don't know. I think out of this, to be honest, this, out of every topic we've talked about, is getting me the most emotional.
Yeah, because it really is, there's a lot to it.
There's a lot to it, and I'm so sad for anybody who got killed, but also anybody who had to kill. So I'm just sad, you know? That's what it is. It's just a difficult issue with a lot of human suffering. We need to get back and wrap this up with this last world.
Your favorite topic in the world.
Yeah, and you know what's so funny? Because I said I would not talk about it when my mom was trying to convince me of the importance of the royal baby. And obviously,
and what have you been talking about?
Well,
a lot.
Obviously, I reneged on that, but I'm not giving it the fawning coverage that other people are. But
Just don't like the baby.
no, it's not even about the baby. It's the fact that the baby. Well, we can save this conversation for the next segment.
I mean, that's what always matters the most, is what I think. So there you go.
It just this. I think. Oh my God! Just talking about Blackwater, it's just like I still
You were
feel.
getting pissed.
What? I need to what?
You were getting pissed.
No, I'm getting sad.
I mean, they're a company making money, fine. You know, what pisses us is that, governments throw money away.
Why is that more important than people dying, though?
Most of Africa is in the middle of a war right now. Most of the goddamn continent
Yeah, and that's...
is at war.
That's bad as well.
And a lot of that is inwards, whereas, I mean, if you look at Africa, that's outward.
Well, I mean, the Middle East and other people getting involved in their shit kind of go hand in hand. I mean, name one external war in Africa right now. That's like Syria. I mean, that's the same concept.
Well, the fastest growing population right now in Africa are the Muslims.
Correct.
Who traditionally had nothing to do with Africa.
That's not true.
Excuse me? The Muslims are the ones who sold them into slavery in the first place.
Well, but to say that Islam didn't have anything to do with Africa is kind of facetious. I mean, there have been great...
Central and Southern Africa? No.
I
It
mean,
had nothing to do with it.
there is a language... they're not a language. I think it's a script of Afrikaans in Arabic script just because of the presence in Islam in South Africa.
Right. Now there is.
No, that was 1800s.
It was the Arabs that came into North Africa and then went further into the continent, and they're the ones who sold the blacks to slavery to the Europeans and and then the Americans.
That's a
I bet you didn't know that, did you?
No. I knew that Muslims were involved in slave trading, but I also know that black Africans were as well, and Europeans.
They were a lot nastier people than people gave them credit for. And now, look who's converting, Africa. They're all converting to Islam.
Islam has been in Africa since the 600s AD.
I know that, but not the numbers that it is now.
But like Christianity's its biggest it's ever been around the world. I would say this whole thing about the slave traders, that's completely unremarkable, because in America, many African Americans swear by Christianity. Christianity was introduced to those populations historically by their slave masters. Religion from your oppressors is nothing new.
There's a lot of areas, too, where there's genocide if you don't convert.
Such as?
That were involved, and they were helping the blacks.
I don't know about that
They even made a movie out of it.
I know the activists were killed who ventured into the South, like members of SNCC and stuff, but you don't think I'm that naive, right?
But it's not a bad thing. You have such a good, open heart. That's kind of naive. You're not like naive like an idiot. Now, Sunday I'm going to be taking a trip to St. Augustine and back.
Ooh.
Okay, I love you, but I don't really listen to it.
I'm hoping this time I won't get banned. Yeah, and I guess some part of me truly believes that one day YouTube will just give up and just let me not have those restrictions.
Yeah, right. It's YouTube.
Oops, I'm still recording.